In contrast to Satan, ChuChu is known for being one of the worst party members in all of Xenogears, both in gear and on foot. The crux of that is her speed. Being tied for dead last in that regard is never going to do you any favors. But an issue is, it's kind of part of ChuChu's identity. Considering she has Maria's death blow gimmick, and that Satan and Billy are the fastest and median speeds respectively, it seems pretty hard to argue that being slow wasn't supposed to be a core part of her design. The thing is, ChuChu doesn't really validate having this sort of design normally. Like, Maria makes sense. A novice player won't get it, but an experienced player will realize, oh yeah, she sorta has the highest magic stat in the game, and a bunch of really strong spells. That's sort of the balancing point for having all that power, is every other stat being, pretty terrible. ChuChu on the meanwhile is a hybrid mage. She's the only healer in the game that can attack offensively with that ether stat. And while it's good enough to kill enemies in one shot that Emeralda needs 2 shots to kill, Emma's probably getting those 2 shots before ChuChu gets her 1 anyways. Obviously, ChuChu being really slow is what hurts her the most more than anything, but we don't want to homogenize changes. Every character would be a lot better in this game if you just granted them haste and added 3 points of speed. We want something involving character identity, that way you're not just picking the guy with the highest stats in that regard. Our key focus when buffing ChuChu was that when she got up to bat, she made the most of that turn if she got less turns than other party members overall. The easiest first change was making it so that her healing was multi-target by default. It really is strange to think about sometimes that in vanilla Xenogears, it's considered okay for Billy to start with that ability, but it's not considered okay for ChuChu to even get that ability. ChuChu's gear form can also multi-target, to tangent onto that for a sec. It's the only real change it got, but between that and the changes to drive, it does a lot with very few changes. Another change in the name of consolidating the action she does on a turn-to-turn basis is her status move. Instead of having 2 for each status type, she just has 1 that covers both. The Tusk in the room, however, is still that speed stat. It doesn't really matter if she achieves more per turn now, if she still gets less turns than other party members. Again, like Rico, it's the Kongol situation. It doesn't really matter if you have twice the stats if you get half the opportunity to use it. And not only did he already get a haste spell to make up for that, there's also an item still in the game, even if it's priced higher, that lets you do that. So we wanted a better solution to make up for that. Our idea was to turn one of her old status spells into a slow spell. Slow isn't an effect you can inflict on enemies in Xenogears, so not only does it give her a stronger sense of identity on foot, it stacks with haste, meaning it doesn't have any redundancy issues. On top of all of this, the dolls have been reworked to benefit ChuChu a lot more. They're also more readily available. Here's the list of dolls and what they do for ChuChu. And while it's not a ChuChu buff per se, Comedine and Tragedine are just items you can get at the beginning of the game, meaning her play dead spell is less of a joke. These changes do a lot for ChuChu, especially the gear one. That was a singular change, and from our testing she tends to be one of the best gears in the game now. But there's a second issue with ChuChu not a lot of people think about. That being availability. ChuChu's the second to last party member in the game, and by the time she joins there are 5 on-foot sections left in the game, and she's not even allowed to participate in one of them. ChuChu already had issues with offense, speed, accuracy, and the fact she's the only gear in the game that can't equip gear equipment. But it doesn't matter how much you offset these issues if she still doesn't have many opportunities to actually be used. That's the hardest part of adjusting ChuChu's kit. We still want her to feel like an actual character and not just a joke we looked at and went, hey, let's just buff all of her stats to max values, wouldn't that be funny? But we also still want to push the needle enough so people actually want to use her. At the end of the day, though, someone still has to come in last place. Much like the changes to Satan, where if he's still the best character in the game, we're fine as long as he's more interesting as that best character. We're kind of okay if ChuChu's the worst character in the game, if she's at least competitive with other characters. Because a character who comes dead last in speed, as well as availability, was never going to be a meta character. And that's fine. Not every character has to be a meta character. We don't do these changes in the hope that every character becomes the best in the game. We make these changes because we want the cast to be more fun to play. And if she's significantly less annoying to get value off of, that's a success in our eyes.